All right, what's up, guys? Want to talk to you about Jax Forest. This kid is a high school junior who just won the U.S. Open at the senior level at 61 kilograms. And by doing that, he punched his ticket to Final X, where he's going to face Vito Arujau. If he beats Vito in the 2 out of 3, he will represent Team USA at the World Championships. Not the age level, the Senior World Championships, the deepest, the toughest tournament in the world, will be wrestled for USA by a high school junior. It's a crazy, crazy situation. But what I want to talk about is the overall perception and how we look at a high school wrestler making this kind of run, and how we should probably be looking at it a little bit differently. And so you know, it's easy for us to put it in the title or the clickbait because it captures the attention. Wow, a high schooler just beat an NCAA champion. A high schooler just beat a world team member. And it's not something that is even uncommon at this point. It's something we're seeing routinely. You know, look at what Marcus Blaze did a year ago at the World Team Trials when he beat Nashawn Garrett and Dayton Fix and Seth Gross all back to back. And now Jax Forest wins a very similar field at the U.S. Open a year later that included Marcus Blaze. But here's the one thing you should consider, and what is different now than was maybe not the case 4 or 5 years ago. And that is, while Jax Forest is young, it is true. While he is in high school, also true. The training he has had is very much senior level. And I'm not just saying that because he's got this great training situation at Bishop McCourt with Bo Bassett and Melvin Miller and Sam Herring, and that he's coached by Jody Stripmatter and Young Guns, you know, maybe one of, if not the greatest club coach in the country. I'm not even talking about that. Take that aside, that he has that elite training situation. I'm talking about the access Jax and many others have had to senior level training over the past couple of years. For the past couple of years, Jax has been able to go to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club and train there consistently once or twice a week, and go in training with what is now the best RTC, the best club in the country. And before that, before Jax moved to Pennsylvania, he was able to train at UNC. He lived in North Carolina. He was training at the Tar Heel RTC there for many years. And then let's not forget that Jax, over the past couple of years or so, or a year, has been going and spending extended periods of time at Oklahoma State, training at the Cowboy RTC with, you know, back when it was with Coach Smith and Coach Coleman Scott, he was training there. And now over the last year or so, he's been training with Coach Taylor and the Cowboys. Not to mention the fact that Jax Forest has made age-level world teams, and guys on the Jax Forest type of level are getting invited to the OTC, to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, and able to participate in those camps. So what my point is in all of this, while his training certainly it's different, he's not at a full-time RTC right now. If you stack up the amount of time, it's very literally months, if not years, of senior level training Jax Forest and others have been able to have at this point in their careers, their young careers, but still they have amassed a lot of time training with the best of the best. So how does that bear itself out? Well, obviously, if you're training with better guys, it's going to make you better at wrestling, right? But one thing that I think it contributes that maybe is not discussed enough is just the stigma and that shock factor. Jax has had that. Jax, when he enters these tournaments, Marcus Blaze, when they enter these tournaments, they're not like, oh, I wonder how I stack up against the best guys in the country. They all know. They've all had that kind of like moment where it's like, oh, wow, I'm about to wrestle Dayton Fix. I'm about to wrestle Seth Gross. They've had that years ago in the training, in a training aspect. So then when they get on the mat against these senior level guys, that stigma is not really there, and the respect factor is not really there. Not that they don't respect them, but they're not overly cautious. They kind of know where they stack up. And then when you also factor in the insane competition schedule that these wrestlers have, whereas many of the senior level wrestlers in America today, they're training and they just train and train and train and train, and they don't compete. Well, these high school kids, they're wrestling once a weekend. They're wrestling all the time. So they're getting this constant feedback. And oh, by the way, these high schooler kids are also good now. They're getting elite competition pretty frequently as well. They're not getting, you look at some of our world team members, they're wrestling once or twice a year. Sometimes over the last quad, they would wrestle just in the qualification, like a Final X, and at the World Championships. Well, there's, for these young guys that are improving so rapidly, and you're seeing incredible improvement, that competition, that feedback loop, that is really accelerating their growth and accelerating their improvement. And I think it's an advantage that we're seeing. These guys have so many competition reps, and you're seeing it play out, and it's an advantage to many of these senior level wrestlers. So I think how we frame the high schooler versus senior level guy, you would think, wow, this senior level guy has so much more experience. Well, not recently. They're not in competition. And you have some RTC guys, they only practice. They hardly ever compete. They don't compete. And so you contrast that with what you're seeing from a Jax, from a Bo, from a Marcus Blaze, a D Lockett, PJ Duke. These guys are getting such great experience in training, but they're getting such great experience in competition that when they get out there on the senior level mats, they're in many ways more prepared than some of the senior level wrestlers. And so I think while you would say, wow, he's young and he's inexperienced, there's also a lot of advantages to what these guys are doing. And this was just not the norm 4 or 5 years ago, right? When the Dayton Fixes, the Spencer Lees, the Nick Sorianos were coming up, everyone knew these guys could scrap. Everyone knew these guys were really, really good. But the idea of them entering a senior level tournament as a high school junior, it just wasn't happening. It wasn't even really discussed. And now it's the norm for a lot of these guys. And now in the era of online schooling, these guys, Jax included, they can go to Stillwater for weeks on end, still doing their high school thing, but getting the highest level training. And the same is true for other RTCs and other kids in other situations. I mean, Marcus Blaze is a great example. This guy was going to the Ohio Regional Training Center for years, training alongside Jesse Mendez and training alongside the Buckeyes for years and years and years because he's an Ohio kid. And you can't tell me that wasn't a huge accelerant to the greatness of Marcus Blaze. So it's a pretty cool era for USA Wrestling, and it's a pretty interesting subplot. And I think we've been saying it over the last couple of years, the elite high school, that's the senior level now. That's just part of that conversation. And we're seeing it more and more. So you shouldn't be surprised when eventually a high schooler is not just beating senior level wrestlers, not just making Final X, but representing Team USA at the World or even Olympic Championships someday. I think it's realistic. I think it could happen. I think it could happen as soon as this year, when I think Jax Forest has a great shot. And a lot of people think, the Flow guys that I work with and do the podcast with are like, they don't see it with Jax that he could beat Vito Rujao. And I understand that respect. I mean, Vito Rujao is a world champion, a world bronze medalist. I mean, his last time at the World Championships, he beat an Olympic champion, Oguyev. He only lost to Masa Ono at the World Championships, who was the story of the entire Worlds. So I understand that. But maybe this ties back into my original point. Jax has been on the mat. He has been competing. He has been training. He is getting better and better every time out. The improvement we see in these guys year over year is insane. And now we haven't seen Vito Rujao compete since those World Championships. And there are maybe some health questions that go into that. And now we know Jax Forest is healthy. He's wrestling really well, all-time confidence. And I really give him a very strong shot at beating Vito Rujao at Final X. It's going to be one of the most fascinating matchups of Final X, regardless. And we only know 2 of the matchups, Luke Lillidahl versus Spencer Lee, and Vito Rujao versus Jax Forest. But I think Jax has the point scoring ability and the confidence to be able to beat someone like Vito. Now, for Vito, he's got the arm drags, he's got the leg attacks, he's got the incredible leg lace, and he has the ability to land that knockout punch early, right? And I think that's a super realistic. There's a possibility he comes out and he could 10-0 Jax Forest. That's on the table. But I think if you're going to beat Vito Rujao, you got to be able to score not just a couple points. You got to be able to score a lot of points. And it probably has to be a shootout. And I think that's just the kind of challenge. And I think that's just the kind of style that Jax Forest is going to bring to the mat on Final X. So that's my thought. I mean, the point of the video is this. It's not a slight. It's not an embarrassment to lose to a high school kid. You should appreciate the guys that can make it happen. And most importantly, you shouldn't be surprised when it happens again.